But the reality is search views only account for less than 10% of the views that happen on YouTube daily. So where are the rest of the views coming from?
Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Liz Germain. If you don't know who Liz is, she is a YouTube expert. She's the founder and CEO of VidFluence, an organic YouTube growth agency that helps experts and influencers grow profitable YouTube channels. Her group training and mastermind program is called Channel Amplifier. Liz, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm super excited that you're here. Today, Liz and I are going to explore how to create viral reach on YouTube. Now, before we go there, Liz, I want to hear your story. How'd you get into YouTube? Start wherever you want to start.
Yeah, so YouTube was actually kind of an accidental career path that it's become for me. My sister and I, we grew up in Michigan, and we grew up not the healthiest. And I remember there was a really big experience in my teenage years. I lost a close friend to suicide. Wow. And I looked at, what is actually going on in my own life? How can I avoid going down a similar path? How can I get my own life, in a better place? Because, growing up, I struggled a lot with mental health challenges, just not really feeling like I belonged in this world, and lots of just existential crises as a teenager, basically coming into adulthood. And when that happened, it was really like a full 180, completely jarred me and made me look at the things that actually matter in life. And so I became very determined in that loss to not go down that same path. And to also, there was this growing desire in me to help other people avoid going down that level of pain and loss. And so I looked at my life very strategically in that moment, decided, you know what? I actually don't want to live in Michigan anymore. I want to go where it's sunny every day and there's palm trees. I want to go where people really prioritize health, because I made a very serious commitment in that moment that I'm going to get healthy spiritually, emotionally, physically, and financially. And I'm going to do whatever it takes because I don't want to go down that same path. And so packed my bags, moved to California, got a place on the beach, and basically started working really, really hard to make that work. And part of that journey for me was really getting into health and fitness. And I became, over the course of several years, a personal trainer and group fitness instructor, because I just became obsessed with taking care of myself and also learning about the body, learning about the mind. And this is around the time where I came across Chalene Johnson, who ended up becoming one of my very first mentors. And I just loved everything about Chalene. She was so positive. She was so happy. And I was like, I want more of that. So I kind of went down that path. And my sister also ended up kind of following in these footsteps, because she saw me get really healthy, saw me go into the fitness industry. And she was like, I want that too. Happiness is contagious. And so we both became fitness instructors, personal trainers. And in that process, we started documenting the things that we were doing in our own personal transformations, going from, I don't know anything about fitness, just basically, hey, let me strap on my sneakers and go out for a run, because that's all I knew how to do at the time. But over the course of about 2-3 years, we studied everything we possibly could about the human body and what human bodies even are and how to take care of them and all of that. And she and I, having each other as support systems, we created a health and fitness blog for other women who might be on the same type of journey. And this was way back before Instagram even existed. Okay, so just to kind of put things in context, Instagram didn't exist yet. There was Facebook, there was Instagram, there was Pinterest, but Instagram still hadn't really been created. And when it did, that was kind of right when we were starting this blog. And so what we were doing was sharing the healthy recipes that we were creating and also the workout routines that we were doing. And we just put them onto our little hobby blog at the time, thinking to ourselves, we see people like the Tone It Up girls and Chalene Johnson, they're out there doing this on a massive scale. And so if anyone's interested, maybe we just post these things so that, if somebody's inspired by it, they can take something from that. So that business that we originally started, we didn't intend to have it become a business, but it just kind of accidentally happened. At the time, I was working 4 jobs to afford rent in LA, working at physical therapy clinics at UCLA, which took a long time to even get the credentials to work at UCLA, and a couple other private training facilities doing group fitness classes and things like that. And in the meantime, in our free time, we were putting these things that we were doing onto the blog. Then Instagram was born. We started posting on Instagram. And this whole time we kind of saw YouTube's potential, but it was really scary and confusing. We didn't really know how to succeed on YouTube. And, when you're in that kind of beginner's mind, it's like, well, who am I to put this out on YouTube and pretend I have it all together? Because we definitely did not have it all together. But I think that's part of what the people that ended up following that information online, I think they really appreciated that. And so we eventually, after a certain amount of time, putting out all this, hey, here's the workout we're doing today. Here's why we're doing it. Here's the science behind it. Here's the recipe that we're swapping. Instead of eating pizza, which I would really love to just smash a pepperoni pizza right now, but I know it's going to make me feel bad later. How do we make the healthier version of that? Eventually, we decided, maybe we run a group challenge, a group fitness challenge. And so we put together a little 6-week workout program for specifically tailored to women and, basically speaking to our past selves. And we were hoping to get 10 women enrolled in that program because we thought it would just be fun. And what ended up happening is because of platforms like YouTube, Instagram, Pinterest, and our little blog, which, we followed Chalene. So Chalene's always all about build a newsletter, make sure you have an email list. So we made sure we did that, but we didn't know where it was going. We eventually did launch this fitness challenge for a 6-week back to the beach type of challenge. And we were hoping to get 10 women in there. And we ended up getting over 300 women from multiple different countries around the world. And I think that was really the aha moment for us of like, oh, wow, you really can actually make money. Now, the big mistake that we made, or I actually don't even like calling it a mistake because it was where we were at the time. We charge, I think, $20 for this challenge. And we basically were like, wow, what if we just went all in on this and then got really good at hosting these types of online communities and sharing education resources and information for people that had the same type of realization that wanted to get healthy from the inside out. And so we ended up really going all in on that. And then fast forward about 5-6 years later, my sister, us being both in our 20s at the time, she met the love of her life in that chapter and decided she wanted to get married. And so her and her new husband, they wanted to start a new adventure, a new channel, a new brand in the van life space. And so when she was exiting that first initial fitness business, I really was kind of forced to look in the mirror of like, well, what am I going to do from here? We had built the brand around each other, being sisters and supporting sisterhood and like, really working on the mindset pieces to get stronger and fit. But from a really good place of, I just want to feel better. I want to be more energetic to spend time with my family. I don't want to go down dark paths because it's really easy to do that. So when she left, I had a whole year. And luckily at this point, we were 5-6 years into that fitness business. We had membership, recurring revenue coming in. We had brand deals and sponsorships, all kinds of stuff that we were blessed to receive in the giving originally of wanting to help other people. And because I didn't have the pressure of, oh, I need to go work my 4 or 5 different jobs now just to pay rent, I stepped back and I really asked God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. I said, I want to be led into what's next. I don't want to make this decision out of like I'm forcing it or I'm pushing it. And so I took a year to go travel and just kind of exist, right? While still maintaining the YouTube channel and the brand and things like that, still running the challenges. And over time, eventually it just became really clear that what we had built on YouTube at the time, we were probably around 50, 60,000 subscribers. And what we had built, even at the time, the biggest question that I got asked all the time when I was traveling to places like Peru, Thailand, all over the place was, how are you just traveling all the time? What do you do? Do you work for some big corporation? It's like, no, actually, most of the revenue is coming from, to my surprise, when I really looked at where the return on investment was coming from, it was YouTube and Pinterest, even though those were two of the platforms that we were the least active on. So this was way back in the day when we were posting every single day on Instagram, putting out weekly newsletters. We were running Facebook ads. We were doing literally everything to try to keep the business to a level that it was still fun, but it started to get really overwhelming. And then especially when she left, I really had to look at the P&Ls, so to speak, and look at where is the most return coming from the least amount of time, because I just lost half the leadership team. And so when I had this aha moment of like, oh, YouTube and Pinterest are doing really well still, even though I barely spend time on that, I started getting really curious about why that was. And at the same time, I was traveling around the world, getting these, multiple, it was dozens and dozens of people asking, what do you do? How are you traveling? How are you doing this stuff? And my answer was always, well, YouTube brand deals, YouTube AdSense revenue, YouTube drives sales into the membership program. So I don't really have to, hustle and grind. I kind of pulled away as my sister left from the daily posting on Instagram and all of that. And then once I got curious about why are YouTube and Pinterest driving so much of the results of this business, I realized, oh, wow, it's because they're evergreen platforms. They're not timeline bound like social media platforms often are, where you have this timeline and you're in this dopamine scroll, right? And that's gotten, obviously the world has changed. These platforms have changed, including YouTube, dramatically over the last several years, but really looking at it and getting intentional about why am I doing what I'm doing? And then also hearing there's a serious demand for people that don't understand how YouTube works and that also are curious how you monetize YouTube and how you create an evergreen profit machine. Like all the signs were pointing to, hey, let's test out teaching people how to do on YouTube what we've already done. And so I ran a couple beta programs, ran them through a course, got really curious about, okay, well, what people don't understand about YouTube, because at that point we'd been doing it for 5-6 years. And I had learned a lot of how to overcome the beginner mistakes with YouTube stuff and how to actually make sure the eggs that you're putting in the YouTube basket are actually going to create a return for you. And I've basically just been doing YouTube consulting ever since. So
yeah, and you work with Chalene now, is that right? And Tony Robbins as well?
Yeah. So Chalene eventually did end up becoming one of my clients, and I meet with her, on a regular consulting basis in case they ever get stuck. Pretty much since we started working with her more intentionally, she has added an additional 100,000 subscribers within like a 8-month time frame. It's been absolutely wild because, if anybody knows Chalene on this podcast, she is very much on the Instagram train and has been for a while. But she's had this like curiosity around, well, what about YouTube? And so it's been a real honor to be able to kind of return the favor, because Chalene was really the one that, kind of set the stage for my sister and I to become entrepreneurs, and to now be able to help her in return is amazing. And yeah, ever since then, a lot has changed, a lot has shifted. We've gotten a lot of systems and processes, because it's one thing to build a YouTube channel for yourself. It's a completely different thing to help other people build profitable YouTube channels for themselves. And so over the last 4 years or so, since I've only been doing YouTube consulting, working with people in all different industries and things like that, our skills, our templates, our processes, our programming strategies, everything has just gotten better and better over the years. And that has led me to continue to support some other additional clients like Tony Robbins, like Gabby Bernstein, like JJ Virgin. Some of these big industry leaders now come to me for support on how to grow organically on the platform.
Outstanding. Marketers that are listening, because we don't just have creators, we have a lot of marketers listening to this show. Let's just get a quick answer on why they ought to pay attention to YouTube.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference of YouTube versus all the other platforms out there, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, YouTube is evergreen, like I said. And I had this big aha moment about 5-6 years ago where I was like, wow, the work that you do on YouTube, it doesn't just perform for that one day or that 1 week. And even if you get a viral video on a platform like TikTok, Instagram, etc., it performs for a little while, but then eventually it does get archived because of the way that those platforms actually function. YouTube is completely different. It does not work in a timeline type of sense. And so if you're creating really good, high quality, relevant content for your ideal audience, if you make a video now today, it has the potential to pay off and not only pay you AdSense revenue from YouTube directly, but also generate leads and sales for your programs for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I know this to be true because the first channel that we ever started still pays a significant portion of our overhead expenses. And I haven't posted a video on those channels in probably like a year or two, but those videos still keep cranking. They still keep generating leads, whether it's for our affiliates or whether it's for just through YouTube AdSense. So I think the biggest thing for marketers to understand is that YouTube is a truly evergreen platform. And if you do the work right once, it has the potential to pay off for the next several decades for you.
Outstanding. Let's talk about the algorithm and how it works on YouTube, and also whatever you want to share about how different sources of traffic play into YouTube.
Yeah, so I think this is, obviously this last year or so, we've heard a lot about AI and new AI developments, and AI is going to replace all these jobs and things like that. I think the biggest thing that people don't realize about YouTube is that it is an AI. It's an AI system. It's been an AI system, and it's been that way for a really long time. YouTube's actually at the very forefront of leading the AI charge, along with Google and all its subsidiaries. So because YouTube's algorithm, we hear YouTube algorithm all the time. YouTube's algorithm is actually an AI at the top of multiple segregated algorithms based on traffic sources. So each traffic source on YouTube, there's a handful of them that we need to really understand. One of them would be the YouTube homepage. One of them would be YouTube search. One of them would be the YouTube Shorts feed. One of them would be suggested video. These traffic sources, they all have their own individual algorithms that work cohesively together. And then there's this AI at the top that's interpreting the relevancy and performance data amongst each one of those individual traffic sources. And when I first learned that, I was like, wow, because you don't hear that publicly. You hear like, oh, the YouTube algorithm, right? And you think it's just like this, this robot overlord. And it's not, it is in a sense, but it's also not. And each traffic source has very different pros and cons. If we're really trying to grow a YouTube channel, what we ideally want to have happen is that YouTube is recommending our content out to multiple different ideal audiences for us. But that tends to be such a struggle for people that are just getting into the YouTube world, because they're thinking of it as this like analogous, this like amalgamation of robots that maybe
they think of Facebook, right?
It's like they think they're getting shadow banned or whatever else, and probably the reality is, hey, your content just didn't perform well from a relevance and performance perspective in these specific traffic sources, and so therefore YouTube has no incentive to push it out to wider audiences. But the good news is there's ways that you can actually fix that and make it much more likely that your content does get picked up by this AI system that's analyzing all the data and all the interactions with your content. And that's really what I specialize in teaching people today.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is that there's really 4 different algorithms at least, right? There's probably more. You've got the homepage of YouTube, you've got the search section of YouTube, you've got the YouTube Shorts, which is obviously all the short form video, and you've got suggested videos. And each of them has a different algorithm that has different objectives and different goals. And obviously not every video is going to perform on every one of these, because obviously shorts aren't necessarily going to show up. They could show up on the homepage, but they might not show up under suggested videos. So that's really fascinating. I think it's good for everybody to understand that. So you have developed a process, and we're going to go through it step by step. And really your process is how to create a video that will ultimately get a lot more views, right? And maybe even go viral. So what is the very first part? What's the name of your process? And then what's the first step in your process, the first stage?
So the name of our process now is called the GROW method, which essentially is a 4-step process to ensure that we're going to be getting your content in front of the right people, that it's also going to perform well with, because those are 2 of the most fundamental pieces for YouTube's AI to recognize, hey, this is good content. Let's show it to more similar viewers that maybe you haven't interacted with yet. So step 1 is groundwork. This is essentially getting really clear on what are we actually trying to achieve on YouTube and why. And not just from the perspective of, hey, I want a bunch of subscribers, because who doesn't want that? Everybody wants that. Subscribers and big audience numbers, we all know they open up big opportunities for people, but that's not enough. When we're in this groundwork phase, we really want to be looking at what is the monetization pathway that I'm going to be taking? And also, am I coming into the YouTube kind of ecosystem with the right creator mindset that's focused more on giving value to the audience that I'm creating the content for versus taking from them, right? Like, how quick can I make the money? How quick can I get subscribers? We want to come to it with a generosity piece where we're essentially, everything that you do on YouTube is focused on what the viewer actually wants most. So in this groundwork phase, we get really clear on how are we going to monetize the channel and who are we creating the content for? And are we in the right mindset to actually focus on the marathon, not the sprint? The people that I see get the worst results on YouTube are the ones that come in with a taker mentality. They're like, I just want subscribers, I want the fame, I want the money, and I want it now. And they get burnt out and they get frustrated, and it doesn't work for them because people can sense that energy. So groundwork is getting really clear on what is my goals, what are my intentions, and also what is the ultimate monetization pathway that we're going to be taking, because a channel that wants to get most of their money through brand deals and sponsorships and the AdSense revenue that comes from really engaging content with millions and millions of views, that's going to be a very different programming strategy than a channel that has essentially, I don't really care how big the channel gets. I just want to generate leads and sales for my course or my program on the back end of the channel. So we get really clear on all those things and why are we doing what we're doing, and also making sure we're in the right creator mindset of giving, because YouTube is a giving platform. The creators that succeed the most are the ones that are actually providing something of value, whether it's in the realm of education, entertainment, inspiration, or some combination of all three. So that's groundwork, is what's the target that we're aiming for and what's the quickest pathway to get there. From there,
real quick, before we go on to stage two, I know that there's some people in my audience that are more like my company, where it's not about monetization because they're a business, right? And I just want to share, we have a relatively large channel, over 300,000 subscribers, and YouTube does pay us thousands of dollars a month. And we're not creating videos to necessarily make money off of YouTube. We're just doing it because we're a media company and we're trying to have our brand out there. But everybody needs to understand that all YouTube creators are going to get paid by YouTube. And the truth of the matter is that YouTube is going to show ads next to your videos for products and services that may not even be your own products and services, but that's the way the game works, right? So it's an auction, and no matter what, even if you turn off monetization, they're still going to run ads against it. So you may as well just take the money and use it to help offset your operating costs. Because like I said, not everybody here is like creators. Some of them are business people. So that's just my 2 cents. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that before you go on to the next step in your process.
Yeah, totally. And I think AdSense specifically is the one monetization pathway that most people think of when they think of YouTube success. They think of, these big YouTubers get millions of dollars from YouTube directly for being able to run ads on their videos. And you're spot on. YouTube's going to run ads with or without your consent, essentially, and with or without you getting a piece of the pie. So if you are at the point where your channel is monetized, you absolutely should keep that monetization on as much as possible. Now, sometimes for the business owners, they're like, but I don't want my competitors to run ads on my content. The cool part is in Google Ads, you can blacklist or whitelist any type of advertising category or specific people. So if that's really the concern that's causing you to not want to, monetize the videos through AdSense, there are ways around it that aren't going to necessarily hurt you. And the reality is with YouTube specifically, they call it the YouTube Partner Program for a reason. They want good business partners. And so if you're not aligning with also what YouTube's goals are, which is to keep people on the platform as long as possible so that they're able to generate that AdSense revenue, 97% approximately of YouTube's revenue comes through the AdSense program, through running ads on the content. And so if we look at, what are YouTube's goals? What do they actually want from their creators? They want good business partners. And so to be a good business partner, turn the AdSense on, because that's what YouTube wants of you as the creator. They want to use your platform or your specific channel as a place to host those ads, because that's, again, where it makes 97% of its revenue. So ultimately, yeah, if you are blessed enough to get to the point of monetizing the channel, 100%. But here's the thing about AdSense is that it actually works best as a cherry on top. And you kind of probably just have this set up naturally, because as a business owner, you realize, okay, AdSense can fluctuate like this, right? It can be a roller coaster based on what the advertisers, what campaigns they're running, are they seasonal, et cetera. There's lots of different things, and you don't have direct control over the AdSense money. So we always want to use AdSense revenue for the creator as a cherry on top, but it should never be the core monetization strategy that we use for the business behind the channel.
Okay, so we've talked about this first step, which is groundwork in your grow method. What is the next stage?
The next stage is a combination of deep research and also how do we reach as many people as possible on the platform. And this really dives into what is the programming strategy and also what are the patterns that we can identify in what our core audience is watching most on the platform, because we want to reverse engineer those patterns and put them into your own content plan. So this is getting really clear on not just stepping into the YouTube world, hitting record with no plan whatsoever. It's getting really clear on who is the viewer, what do they watch most on YouTube, and how do we start to isolate those patterns based on the traffic source that we want to optimize for, because not all traffic sources are created equal for the types of strategies that we're trying to roll out. I'll give you an example of this. YouTube search, YouTube SEO. Everyone's heard about that. You got to put keywords in your titles and things like that, right? YouTube search is amazing for lead generation and for generating sales on the back end of the channel if you have a niche program, course, product of some sort. However, YouTube search as a whole on YouTube as a traffic source, it really only counts for about 7 to 8% of total views that happen on the platform daily. And this is like mind blowing for some people because most of the public information out there is like, do YouTube SEO, do YouTube shorts. It's like all this, buzzwords and things like that. But the reality is search views only account for less than 10% of the views that happen on YouTube daily. So where are the rest of the views coming from? And the answer to that is through YouTube recommendations for the most part, right? And recommendation traffic sources is things like homepage, suggested video, where basically YouTube is putting your content in front of your ideal audience for you. So you're not having to, tweak all the little keywords and things like that, which can be really tedious and actually counterintuitive, especially for somebody that is more of a creator type. It's a very logical process, very detail oriented, very step-by-step. You'll be spending time in keyword tools and things like that. And if you're a creator, a true creator at heart, that can be really discouraging for somebody because they're like, well, do I have to do this for every single video? The answer is no, you don't. So in this reach phase, what we're looking at is how can we identify the patterns and top performing content that YouTube's already recommending to the types of viewers that we want to reach? And then how do we isolate those patterns and then reverse engineer them and put them into our own content strategies so that we're not just swinging at the fences, basically shooting blanks, essentially hoping that it works. We're actually specifically reverse engineering from content that's already getting those recommendations that is similar to what our audience is asking for or engaging most with. So that's essentially in that reach phase, we're getting really intentional about not only the formats that we're using, are we going to do long form versus short form, but we're also looking at what does my audience watch most? So I'll give you an example for that. If you have a Gen X or Boomer audience and you're doing shorts every day, but maybe one short gets 20,000 views and the rest are kind of like doing okay. And then your long form videos are maybe getting a couple hundred views and you're wondering, why isn't it working? Everybody says to do shorts, just like they say to do YouTube SEO. You look at that and you realize Gen X and Boomers, they're really not spending time on the YouTube Shorts feed. That's a format in and of itself that is more catered and more friendly or relevant to people that are millennials, Gen Z, or even this upcoming generation, Gen Alpha. So everything that you do on YouTube is going to ultimately come down to who is the viewer that we're trying to attract, whether it's the format that they're most accustomed to or they most enjoy watching, whether it's a pattern in the way that the titles are written, whether it's a pattern that we discover that, hey, there is absolutely, a very clear, these 5 topics are covered by the top competing channels in my space. I should probably work those into my programming strategy too, if I want to reach those same types of people. All the answers are there when you know how to find and isolate patterns from the traffic sources that we're trying to maximize for you.
Okay, I'm going to summarize what I think I hear you saying, then we can move on to the next stage. What I'm hearing you say is that when you are on YouTube and you are maybe starting with search, even though I know it's not the ideal example, but who are the people that are dominating search in your category? Who are the ones that seem to be showing up on the homepage and suggested videos? Identify those videos, look at what they're doing, look at the kind of content specifically they're creating in those videos so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And this is the kind of content that you should map into your content plan. Is that correct? Am I hearing that correctly?
Yep. Essentially, we're looking at the top performing content in any type of space that is already engaging the viewers that you also want to engage. And then we're reverse engineering the patterns we find. So patterns in content, when I say content, really what we're talking about is the topic of the videos, the title structures of the videos, how the thumbnails are packaged and designed, and then also the content itself. So what is the editing like? How is the pacing? Are they using pattern interrupts? Are they using, standard talking head videos where it's more educational, or are they doing storytelling vlogs where now we're going out in the street with somebody, or there's a repeating type of format? Like we look at Mr. Beast channel, there's probably like 4 or 5 formats that he does, like, hey, I survived his most recent video at the time of the recording of this. I survived 7 days in an abandoned city. That I survived format, he does all the time, whether it's I survived, 30 days in an isolation chamber. I buried myself alive for 14 days and I survived. That's a repeating format because the value proposition of that format is proven to work. And really what we're trying to do here is identify especially when you're brand new, you don't have your own analytics data to be making those decisions from. So what we're doing is looking at who already has that audience, who owns that audience on YouTube. And essentially, when we first start with a channel in consulting, we'll try to identify at least the bare minimum is who are the top 10 channels in this space that already own this audience on YouTube. But ideally, we're looking at, 20, 30 different creators, and then we're studying their programming strategies and looking for those types of patterns so that we can basically collapse time so that you don't have to make the 2 to 3 year standard timeline of making beginner mistakes. We just go straight to the source because they've already done what you're trying to do. So let's reverse engineer. And we're looking at those types of things: topics, titles, and thumbnails, and then the content itself, the editing styles, the formats that they're using, et cetera.
Well, and I would imagine if you're in a super, super niche industry where you don't have a lot of competitors that are doing it right, you probably could expand your horizons a little bit or look for inspiration in different industries. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. Actually, we call this we call it the DJ Khaled method, where it's essentially, if you can't really find anything in your tiny niche that's popping off like that, and this is true for niche type of creators, it's true more often than not, is like, let's say I'm only trying to sell a certain type of product, but there's not really any big creators on that space that are doing the entertainment style content like a Mr. Beast or Ryan Trahan or some of these, very entertaining creators that have a completely different business model. If that's the case, what we can do is basically become DJ Khaled, where it's like, hey, well, let's see what else our viewers are most likely to be watching on YouTube. And let's break it down from an analytical lens of why do they like that content? What is the value proposition that they're getting out of that? And then how do we take that format or that, golden gem from this other creator that's getting massive amount of engagement and build that into our own strategy? So it's essentially, if I see a video that's doing really well, and we actually do this on a monthly basis, every time I see a viral video, I'm trying to ask myself, why did that video go viral? What are the psychological elements that got the click and then also got them to watch from start to finish? And how do we take those learnings and apply them to any industry on the platform? So yeah, you absolutely, if you're not finding any patterns in your own industry, 110%, look for patterns in slightly tangent verticals on YouTube, and we can absolutely pull from those tangent verticals as well.
And I think we should clarify, you do not need to be an entertainer to do this, right?
No,
right.
Not at all.
Okay, good. So, all right, let's go to your third stage. We know that the first stage was groundwork. Second stage is reach, which involves a lot of research. What is the third stage in the process?
So once we've identified what those things are, essentially what we're trying to do is get out some testing videos. Okay, so we're not just throwing stuff up that we feel like we should film or that we think our viewers might like. No, we're actually looking at what has a record and data from other creators of performing well with this type of audience. And then we use that to inform what your videos should actually be. So the goal from there is to think of the videos in like chunks of 8 or 10 at a time, based on what you learn and the patterns that you isolate and identify in that research process. Then we want to actually go produce that content. We're trying to match and mirror, whether it's a packaging thing like title and thumbnail. They were, the top 10 creators in my space, they all had these kind of patterns. Or whether it's the content itself or the topics that are being covered, the formats, et cetera, then we're building that into your specific video plan. Like, here's the next 10 videos I'm going to go create based on the patterns that I found. Once you do that and you publish them to the platform, then comes the really fun part, because this is where
before we go to the fun part, I want to ask clarifying questions. Let's say we're doing some research and we find that some videos that are top performers are entertaining and some are maybe intriguing, not entertaining, but maybe have like a level of intrigue to it that gets people to want to keep watching the video. Let's just say those are the two options. Would we create 8 to 10 of each kind of those videos, or we create like 4 or 5 of one kind and 4 or 5 of another and throw it into our testing phase?
Yeah, so the way that YouTube channels are designed is to serve a single value proposition to a specific audience. And so let's say we're looking at 10 testing videos at a time. We wouldn't want to have 10 of this type of format, 10 of that type of format, 10 of this other type of format. We're trying to kind of create a mix and match buffet of styles that we can essentially get data to see
what works, right?
Exactly. So it's like, okay, let's use this to reverse engineer what is most likely to work. And then we're going to kind of mix and match of the things that we found in that research process. Maybe we'll have 2 that are more keyword based. Maybe we'll have 3 or 4 that are a specific format or title structure that we found was repeated on these top performing creator channels. And then maybe we'll have one that's more of a storytelling video, et cetera. But ultimately, everything that you do on YouTube, it's going to come back to what is the viewer most likely to watch. So, if you discover in your research process, hey, they're all watching these other podcast channels, for example, we're not necessarily going to start creating vlog videos because if we know our audience really likes podcast content, we're probably going to go in the podcast direction. So to clarify, if you had 10 videos that you're testing out, it's a mix and match kind of process of, okay, let's pull, these were the most popular ones. So we want to try at least 3 different versions of that type of video. And then there's a couple other things here that we can pull from, et cetera. So we're kind of making a little buffet of different options. And the goal really of this process is, of those 10 videos that you put out, with the intentional strategy and intentional pattern recognition behind them, you may have 1 or 2 of them that we would call a breakout video that outperform your typical average once they get posted to the channel. So what we're doing is we're being smart about the content that we're testing out, getting a variety of different formats, content styles, et cetera, that we've seen from other creators have a statistically significant historical performance record from other people. And we're going to pull those in and do our best. And probably 1 or 2 of them will do better than any video you've ever had before. And so we're really being strategic about the content we're testing, because content production, it takes forever. It takes so long to not only produce the content, plan the content, but also get the content edited in video form. And it can start to get really, really expensive. So we want to be smart about this process. And if you have 1 or 2 videos that outperform your typical average, those are the ones that we want to double and triple down on over time because of how YouTube's algorithms work.
So what is it we're looking for, obviously, once we find the winners, when we're in this optimization stage?
Yeah, so in the optimization stage, and again, this is my favorite part, I spend all day, every day inside of YouTube analytics reports, because ultimately, it doesn't really matter what you feel like doing. It doesn't really matter what 1 or 2 comments on the video say. What really ultimately matters is the overall data and the performance of the content. All YouTube's AI is trying to do is predict and retain. Okay, so it wants to predict what viewers want to see, and it wants to retain them for as long as possible. And so you're essentially following that same type of structure. You're trying to predict what they want to see based on patterns and top performing content. And then we're looking to create content that generates the most amount of retention and watch time possible. And this isn't just on a per video basis. This is, let's say you have one video that gets 100,000 views and everybody's watching for, let's say 15, 20 minutes. That's great. But if that's the only video you have on your channel that does that, you're never going to get into the millions, multi-millions of subscriber levels, because ultimately YouTube wants extreme retention across videos. So in the optimization phase, we're looking inside of your analytics reports to actually see what is going on with the broader audience. What is your average click-through rate? What is your average retention rate? What is your average views per viewer, right? Do they just watch one video and leave and that's it? Because we focus on ranking for a keyword to solve a specific problem or challenge, like how to tie my shoes, for example. If somebody finds it through search, they learn how to tie their shoes and then they're out of there. Right? That's not necessarily what we want to grow the bigger audience and loyal audiences that buy. So we're also looking at, do they go on to watch other content on your channel? And what we're trying to do is create groups of related content that essentially, when someone does discover you, they become hooked into it and they go down these rabbit holes of binge behavior. They don't just watch one video and then leave. And all the answers to everything that you should adjust, when you get really good at reading the analytics reports, it becomes clear as day. Like, hey, this video we thought was going to do really well because it's really topical in our private communities. But then on YouTube, we see it has a 2% click-through rate. Well, it just didn't land with the broader audience, right? So whether it's click-through rate, retention reports, or new versus returning viewers, like, do they go on to watch multiple episodes, not just one and then leave? That's really what we're trying to do. And when we get really good at those things, you're guaranteed to get more impressions from YouTube as well. So you can't necessarily, tinker and tweak. You can't call YouTube and be like, hey, put my video out on the homepage, right? But when you get higher click-through rates, higher retention rates, and also people, when they find your content, they go on to watch multiple episodes on your channel. YouTube loves that. And that's exactly what YouTube's AI wants. And so you're guaranteed to get those impressions. And so that optimization phase, we're really drilling into each one of those reports and looking at the baselines of what were we doing, in the last 90 days or the last year, and is that on an upswing? And really what YouTube is a process of slowly analyzing and adjusting over time.
Yeah. We have spent a small fortune on our YouTube channel over the years. We're not as active on it as we used to be, but we used to bring people in studio and we did all the expensive edits and the animations and all that kind of stuff. And what we found was that exactly what Liz is talking about, like some videos just go nuts, specifically on suggested video side of things, right? And eventually, the way it works is you're going to see that these videos end up getting lower click-through rates because they get shown to wider audiences as they grow. And eventually some of them just kind of die off, in my case at least, because what we talk about is an evergreen, right? Like if you're in a business that's evergreen, well, then you could have ridiculously crazy, like we've had one or two videos that maybe had 1 million views, and we've had many that have had hundreds of thousands and lots that have had tens of thousands. But there really is something, I think, to this: watch your data, watch what works. And this is a universal concept marketers need to do more often, not just on YouTube, but everywhere. The analytics are there, but YouTube provides the best analytics of any social platform that's out there. And you just have to wrap your head around it, and magic can happen. Okay, now there's more to your process. I would love to hear the next stage of your process, which is the fourth stage.
Yeah, the fourth stage is really to help creators and entrepreneurs sustain what it takes to continue to be successful with YouTube long-term. Because as you know, as a content producer, content production takes a significant amount of time, energy, and money. And especially when you start to scale your business to a certain point, you're going to start working with a video editor, a graphic designer, a channel manager, et cetera. And so the last step of the Grow method is we really touch on the workflow systems and processes, because we're trying to make things as easy and sustainable as possible, especially as the channel grows and you can't do it all alone anymore, right? Whether that's your increasing publishing frequency, or maybe, the videos are getting more complex and more advanced with the editing. We want to make sure that we have systems and processes in place so that everybody on the team can be synced up. And so there's no, scope creep happening outside of your awareness. There's no, hey, we're bleeding resources on things we don't actually need to be bleeding money on, and things of that nature. So my agency now, Vidfluence, part of our business is full-blown agency models. So that's where we're representing and helping with channels like Tony Robbins, JJ Virgin, some of these other big creators. And obviously they have teams of, 50, 100 people all at once. And so if you don't have a good organized way to keep the production schedule, organized for everybody on the team, not just the creator themselves, then things can fall apart really quickly or get really overwhelming and things get missed. You have missed opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. So that last little piece is more about, now how do we sustain this process for everybody on the team using streamlined SOPs, systems and processes, and also batch filming everything so that, we're always at least 2 to 4 weeks ahead. There's nothing that's ever going to come in the window and basically throw everybody off so that we miss several weeks at a time, because the chaos can get really chaotic really quickly if you don't have these systems and processes in place. So we basically just take the agency systems that I've built over the last 5-6 years and give you those templates and processes for keeping everybody organized.
For somebody who maybe is just about to enter into the stage where they're doing it themselves, or maybe just with one other person in their company, what's a couple tips on some basic workflow tips, on how to get started? Because a lot of people are overwhelmed by this part of the process.
Yeah, I think ultimately, the more you batch film content, the better and easier it's going to be for everybody involved. So to give people like a general framework of, well, how would I even start to batch film? We want to think about filming 4 or 5 videos at a time, once a month. So block out 1 to 2 days of the month. Every single month, those are going to be your YouTube filming days. And we want to be planning what those videos you're filming in that time frame well in advance. So at least a month in advance, we're doing analytical research and figuring out, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what should we repeat, what should we never do again? And that data is actually what informs the new content that you're filming. And then from there, we're batching them in groups of 4 to 5 at a time. So whether that takes you 1 full day, maybe you want to take 2 half days, whatever it is, like if you can commit 1 full day a month to just YouTube production and then get the proper people in the right seats, you're going to need 3 primary roles to sustain it over the long haul. Usually when you're brand new, you're going to be doing all the roles. Okay. So make sure you block out the right time for this, but you want to have a thumbnail designer, you want to have a video editor, and you want to have somebody that's helping you schedule and upload the content, respond to the comments, et cetera, and kind of just engage with the audience as it goes. So we would call that a channel manager role. When you're brand new, you're probably going to be doing all of them. So the more organized you can get, and there are softwares and tools, and now there's AI tools coming out every day to help you guys with this stuff. The favorite tool that we use for content production and management with schedules and things like that, obviously somebody like Tony has a very busy schedule, so we have to be very on top of it. My favorite software that I've ever found for production tracking and scheduling and things like that is Airtable, because we can store all the thumbnail designs in there. We can set up Zapier automations that, when a video topic gets approved and it moves out of ideation, it can trigger a design request with our design boards, whether that's in Asana or ClickUp or whatever it is that you use. But take advantage of the softwares and automations that are available to you and get yourself as a creator in the process of, okay, 1 to 2 days a month, those are my production days. So at least a week before, I need to know exactly what I'm filming on those days. And then from there, whether you're doing it yourself or eventually when you have the budget to hire other people to help you sustain it, we have one central source of truth. And for us, the software that we use for that is Airtable.
Yeah, we use Asana internally, and we've also used Trello in the past. Trello is a little bit more visual. Asana is Airtable is kind of like Excel spreadsheets, right? It's not as sexy as some of the others, but they all do kind of the same thing. And, it is true that it's a massive undertaking. I mean, we're a media company, and we obviously produce 3 shows a week that are audio, video, written word. And a lot of what Liz is talking about is what we try to do here at Social Media Examiner. It's a little harder to batch when we're dealing with guests and stuff like that. But this has been absolutely fascinating to me, Liz, and I think to so many of our viewers and listeners. If people want to learn more about you, where do you want to send them? And if they want to connect with you on the socials, what's your preferred social platform?
So I'm not too active on social platforms because I live, breathe, eat, and sleep YouTube all day, every day. But you can find me everywhere at Liz Does Video if you want to connect personally. And then as far as learning and education, learning the systems that we use in our agency to help some of the biggest industry leaders in the world, you would want to head over to channelamplifier.com. That's the training system that we basically help anybody who wants to get into the YouTube world. Hey, take all the processes, systems, et cetera, that we've already learned and start deploying it into your same business today. So at Liz Does Video on socials if you want to connect personally, or channelamplifier.com if you're ready to take your YouTube channel to the next level.
Does that at Liz Does Video work on YouTube as well? Is that your short?
It is, but right now we only have a couple of testimonials and things like that up there. That may change in the future. We'll see. Okay.
Yeah. Liz Germain, thank you so much for coming on the show and answering my litany of questions. We're so much better because of it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy.